It's my pleasure to address today's conference on energy sustainability and energy security for the Caribbean in the face of a global transition to a low-carbon footprint. The theme for the conference, Collaboration for Action, is topical and has been recognized by the Energy Chamber through continuous discussions around the margins on this matter. In fact, this government has led this conversation regionally. In these discussions, there's general agreement on what we need to achieve and the direction that we must pursue. Individually, countries have been pursuing their own plans of action, but what is required is a more cohesive action plan for the Caribbean. We will always be stronger together. It's been very difficult listening this morning and understanding the reality of the global energy sector that we face. And I'll touch on that at key points as I continue to try to be disciplined. The Energy Chamber deserves recognition for uniting key stakeholders, policymakers, regulators, financiers, and investors in the region's efforts to achieve a sustainable energy sector. This forum presents the opportunity for networking, gaining first-hand knowledge of proposed sustainable energy developments, the financing requirements, and the role of private investment. This engagement of stakeholders is key to achieving alignment, which is necessary for a successful and just energy transition. As a region, we should actively work together to solidify our commitment to sustainable development, recognizing that globalization efforts towards integration and the complexity of environmental issues pose challenges and offer opportunities to our region. As we shift the focus to our sustainable goals for energy, there's been one key factor shaping all our future policy measures and instruments, which is the impact of climate change. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, Special Report on Global Warming indicates that emissions of greenhouse gases must be cut by 50% by 2030 to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Recent projections at COP28 have suggested that achieving these targets will be challenging. In my view, that's quite diplomatic. Quite frankly, I'm not sure we're going to make it. And that responsibility is not really a responsibility that lies on us here in the region, but is really a responsibility that needs to be carried by the wealthy, developed, and developing countries, the main emitters. And unfortunately, I find too often at these conferences, especially the global ones that I attend, people shy away from facing that reality and shy away from calling out those who are really responsible and those who must really cut back on their emissions, for example, the usage of coal and other more polluting emitters. The Global Renewables and Energy Efficiency Pledge recognized the need for a significant increase in the deployment of renewables and energy efficiency improvements on a global scale by 2030 to maintain warming well below 2 degrees Celsius and limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius in line with the Paris Agreement. We are having currently the greatest signals that this is a reality. It is indisputable that over the last 12 months around the globe, we have faced the warmest temperatures in centuries. As a region, we are endowed with substantial resources to ensure energy sustainability and energy security for the region in the transformation to low-carbon economies. It's estimated that the Caribbean holds 2,525.9 megawatts of potential solar energy, 800.4 megawatts of potential wind energy, and 3,770 megawatts of potential geothermal energy. Yet the installed operational renewable energy of the CARICOM region, including hydroelectric power, stands approximately at a mere 645 megawatts. And I challenge you all in the conference, as you all can continue over the next few days, to be realistic and to question why this isn't happening. I heard Anthony and a few of the other speakers sort of dance around it a little bit. The truth is the financial feasibility. The truth is we are small in a region, And the truth is, for there to be private investment, it has to make financial sense. That key phrase of bankability. And I keep raising it over and over and over. And that can keeps getting kicked down the road. When you look at the small island states or Caribbean neighbors, they simply do not have the financial feasibility at this stage to bring that onto their grid. And I was glad Anthony finally spoke some of the truth as to what is happening in neighboring countries, because very often you hear people say, well, why haven't we brought on to our grid here in Trinidad the small solar and the feed-in and this type of thing? And I smile, because the reality is the electric grids, and we have probably one of the most sophisticated electric grids in the whole CARICOM region, easily. The reality is to bring in feed-in solar off of rooftops around a country. Your grid has to be able to take it. Who is going to upgrade the grid? Who is going to put those substations that allow the power feed from each rooftop in to then be regulated and be put out on the national grid? So one of the challenges I'd like to put to you all in this conference is have the realistic conversations and discussions. Don't hold on to those nice-sounding academic topics that very often are forced down our throat. This figure only accounts for a small fraction of the region's untapped potential. It accounts only for penetration of 12%. Notwithstanding, there's a commitment within the region to increase the percentage of renewables in the energy mix. In this regard, the Caribbean community has set a target of 47% renewable energy contribution to total electricity generation by 2027 and 55% by 2030. It's estimated that Caribbean islands will need to add 4 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity, requiring approximately US $9 billion in additional investment to comply with their nationally determined contributions. This is no small financial feat. The transition to renewables is driven not only by climate change, as the region is a negligible emitter of carbon dioxide, but also by the need for the region's energy supply to become more resilient, sustainable, and economical. Embracing renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and geothermal power provide a sustainable alternative which is competitive with the conventional forms of energy. While solar and wind technologies in particular have become more competitive, I submit that there is need for assistance, not necessarily in the form of subsidies or incentives across the Caribbean. Solar in particular benefits from being relatively straightforward to construct and can be attractive to financiers. But one of the region's problems is scale, and another, quite frankly, is bankability, if we're being honest. The journey towards sustainable energy in the Caribbean is underway, but to date, the region's energy transition has been slow and incremental. To gain momentum requires the dedication and collaboration of individuals, organizations, and governments. Through investments, partnership, and a shared commitment to reliance and diversity, the region can overcome energy challenges. I add that the wealthy, developed, and developing nations, who are the bad actor emitters, also have a responsibility and an obligation to assist us. When you're dealing with a small economy as a CARICOM state government, and you have to take decisions as to where you prioritize your revenue, is the first prioritization of your revenue going to be driven in an area of redoing your whole electric grid, bringing on more renewables, etc., when you have hospitals to put drugs in, schools to be able to send the children to? And these are the realities that we face. And as I continue to say, if we were to shut off everything, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, all the lights, the air conditions, the cars, the plants, everything, as well as the whole CARICOM region, it is less than 2% of the global emissions. But the effects of that for us economically would be devastating and disastrous. You have the small island states facing coastal erosion, rising sea levels. Those are the realities of what they deal with. Disastrous flooding now on an annual basis. So the governments have to divert resources to deal with those realities because those affect the citizens. Where is this $9 billion going to come from? The small nature of Caribbean economies and energy grids results in micro and macro renewable energy projects. Many Caribbean countries are small and have limited viable space for utility-scale projects, such as solar or onshore wind farms. In addition, several of the existing energy systems are not equipped to incorporate renewables. Clean energy projects are also associated with high costs, which makes size important. Larger islands are equipped to undertake utility-scale projects as they're able to meet the spatial requirements of these projects. However, the paradigm may be changing, as while much of the growth over the past 10 years has been on larger islands, advancements in the efficiency and reduction in cost of renewable energy technology will allow all islands, hopefully, to increase the use of renewables. The modular nature of renewable energy systems supports a trend towards distributed generation, where public utilities are making way for independent power producers and large industrial consumers. For small businesses and homeowners, grid-tied renewable energy systems may provide an affordable option to reduce energy bills. Currently, the majority of the Caribbean's utilities are state-owned and based on the use of fossil fuels. However, several utilities in the region are aggressively seeking clean energy solutions to create grids that are independent from imported fuels and resilient to the impacts of climate change. The challenge for these utilities will be to attract high-quality investments in the energy sector that will support their aspirations to drive down the cost of electricity and to create a sustainable energy supply. This is where collaboration based on public-private partnerships can provide the region with opportunities to build innovative and finance renewable, cost-efficient energy solutions, spreading the financial risk and introducing private sector operational efficiency and technology. And I pause at this stage to say that we in Trinidad really sometimes don't appreciate what it is we have. I was speaking to someone recently in another large Caribbean CARICOM state, and the person was telling me that a small townhouse to generate electricity for a 5-family home in a small townhouse, his bill is 8,000 TT dollars a month. And I think that should sink into us here, because in that jurisdiction, they have to try and find electricity from different means. Whereas in Trinidad and Tobago, 99.9% of our electricity is driven from our natural gas reserves. So these are the realities that are faced throughout the rest of the CARICOM. It is a concept that Trinidad and Tobago has embraced. The country's first major utility-scale project, Project Lara, consortium, as you've heard, of BP, Alternative Energy Trinidad and Tobago, Shell Renewables Caribbean, and state-owned National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, is a representation of such a partnership. It's our intention to generate 30% of our electricity from renewables. Towards this end, there are plans for inviting proposals for utility-scale projects, solar projects, utilizing reclaimed lands previously used for quarrying. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries has identified vacant state lands located in northeast Trinidad that are suitable for solar utility-scale projects. It is estimated that the establishment of solar utility projects at these sites, when combined with Project Lara, could meet 30% goal, our 30% goal of power generation from renewables. I intend to go to Cabinet within the next couple of weeks with a note to pursue an RFP for more utility-scale solar projects. We will do our part. In addition to solar, there are other avenues for collaboration between the state and private sector as the government pursues the diversification of Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector to incorporate clean and renewable energy. High on our agenda is the development of a cleaner hydrogen economy. In Trinidad and Tobago, hydrogen is an important input into petrochemical production and is currently derived substantially from natural gas. Our hydrogen policy envisages the movement to cleaner hydrogen from renewable sources, not only as a decarbonization tool, but also as feedstock for industry and a form of alternate energy. In this regard, the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, in collaboration with National Energy, is embarking on a pilot project for the production of green hydrogen. This project will provide a pathway for the participation of downstream petrochemical companies, many of which, I'm reliably informed, are pursuing green hydrogen projects in other jurisdictions. We need to collaborate to maintain a viable petrochemical industry, as their actions in other jurisdictions, such as the European Community, which has instituted a carbon border mechanism adjustment, what you all have heard referred to, CBAM, that penalizes imports from industries that fail to embrace green technologies. You've heard one of our major petchem producers, home-based in Europe, refer to this a number of times this morning. I can tell you the government has engaged with the European Commission. I myself was in Brussels not too long ago talking with those who have the responsibility of implementing CBAM. CBAM is a tool that they believe is being used to clean up the global climate. But again, unfairly, I heard somebody say maybe not intentionally. I'll leave that alone for the moment and try to avoid too much controversy this morning. The reality is, once again, it is going to hit the smaller economies. Once again, it hurts countries like Trinidad and Tobago and our fertilizer production. And I question, where's the equity in it? Because again, and I've said it from this very platform, in the first sign of crisis, those in Europe, when the Russian-Ukraine war broke out and the gas supply was disrupted, the first thing they did was restart every coal plant they could with the worst emissions that are possible. But then now to impose these types of taxes on us and our producers, I question the equity and the fairness. The pilot green hydrogen project is an initial step towards the green hydrogen agenda. I have also authorized the exploration of another commercial-scale green hydrogen project, which I'm told is financially feasible, and if so, it can be pursued as a PPP with NGC Green. Based on the 2023 EU-funded wind strategy, we have envisaged the establishment of a green hydrogen economy in Trinidad and Tobago, based primarily on offshore wind by 2035. In this regard, a cabinet-appointed interministerial and agency steering committee, led by the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, has been tasked with the responsibility of overseeing the deployment of utility-scale wind energy that is aligned with the hydrogen agenda. And I can tell you all that Cabinet did approve just over a month ago that we pursue a wind generation energy strategy, and that is on the way. As small island developing states, Caribbean countries, despite being negligible emitters of greenhouse gases, we are the ones that bear the brunt of natural disasters. It is therefore imperative that the region becomes an advocate for change for its own economic survival. However, there is reason for optimism. Clean technologies that enable a transformation of the energy sector are more accessible than ever, but financing remains a major challenge. The industrialized and developed countries have pledged to provide developing countries with finance to make the green transition. But to a large extent, this has not materialized. The Global Climate Fund, established to provide climate change financing to developing countries, has failed to adequately operationalize this commitment. Time is running out. The fund's board has recognized this shortcoming and is committed in its strategic plan for 2024 to 2027 to significantly improve access of developing countries to the Global Climate Fund finance. I wait with bated breath. Whilst this is a welcome development, the cost of funds must be addressed, as renewable projects come with a high cost. There must be consideration of concessional and even grant funding for capital renewable projects. The financial sector, which is the foundation of the real economy, can play a crucial role in supplying the required financial resources in light of the substantial investment needs. How many of you all have gone for a car loan or a mortgage and understand the risks associated and how the banks measure those? So imagine how they're going to measure these renewable and green projects. And they all only look at that financial feasibility. Commercial banks must incorporate the financing of green projects in their portfolios if they are to play a meaningful role in the green transition in the Caribbean. No government or organization can solve climate change alone. The sector grapples with multifaceted challenges that are both urgent and complex. Navigating intricate regulatory environments, strained supply chains, escalating costs. The scale of the transition requires cross-sector partnership, bringing together technical expertise and resources. Industry collaboration can work, and it can break down barriers and drive systematic change through innovation. In this way, businesses can collectively lead the way towards a carbon-neutral future. The recent SIDS 4 conference echoed sentiments of collaborative support from the international community towards access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy and connectivity. Nice sounding words. The Declaration for Renewed Prosperity highlighted the urgent need to enhance support, investment, and partnership for just, inclusive, equitable, and resilient energy transitions. It further recognized that this support must be extended to address the underlying barriers in accessing and mobilizing finance to deploy clean energy technologies and overcome structural barriers that currently hinder our energy transition goals. Oil and gas companies, given their expertise in managing large projects and having strong balance sheets, can play a leading role in the energy transition, as is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. An increasing number of these companies have been investing in and producing energy through renewable technologies. This shift amid global oil and gas companies also comes with the acknowledgement that achieving emission pledges and broader climate goals is not an individual game plan, and multi-sectorial partnerships are essential. The requirement for multi-sectorial partnerships is underscored by the continuing rise in global energy-related CO2 emissions, which grew by 1.1% in 2023, increasing by 410 million metric tons, to reach a new record high of 37.4 billion tons. In this climate emergency, balancing stakeholder demands and conforming to environmental standards is a challenge. This has been evident by decisions of major energy companies to scale back on renewable energy ambitions. Energy majors, Exxon and Chevron, have had to reassess their decarbonization agendas to meet investor demands. Environmental, social, and governance initiatives have seemingly fallen out of favor, and companies are now doubling down on their core oil and gas business. Shell, Total Energies, and BP have also scaled back on emission targets and clean energy investments, but continue them. The increasing level of carbon emissions remains alarming to all residing in our CARICOM and Caribbean region, as it continues to be one of the most vulnerable regions to climate change. Trinidad and Tobago, like many other Caribbean countries, has been taking steps to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions in keeping with our agreed, nationally determined contributions. Initiatives include increasing a greater proportion of renewables into our energy mix, utilizing technology, some of which you've heard about this morning, and collaborative partnerships, also some of what we've heard about this morning. Specific steps to track and reduce the methane output in downstream operations, and identification of reservoirs for the carbon capture and storage of carbon dioxide. Several countries in the region have implemented a range of mitigation and adaptation measures, including increasing public spending on resilient infrastructure, and many, like Trinidad and Tobago, have set ambitious targets for emission reductions. While there's been some international financial support, it falls substantially short of the funding that is really required. Therefore, as a region, we must continue to push for fundamental reforms of global development aid and climate financing to effect the necessary climate mitigation and adaptation measures. In summary, the region finds itself at a climate change crossroad, where factors that impact on the region lie outside, in the majority of occasions, of our control. The region is neither a large polluter nor a significant geopolitical player to impact on the pollution level of other regions. Its finance centers are impacted by volatile international financial flows, which contract and expand based on global economic factors. Nevertheless, we can overcome these challenges by pooling our administrative resources to reduce cost, sharing our knowledge and expertise and experiences. We need to speak up. We need to speak loudly. We need to call out the main emitters and offenders. And here's where, just briefly, I'll go off of script to just address a couple of topics that I heard this morning. The first I'd like to address, and it hit me over the weekend when someone asked me, all that the government is speaking about in the energy sector, is that real? And this was a very intelligent person in one of the major industries in Trinidad and Tobago, and it struck me to use the occasion this morning. All that is being said, certainly by myself, in the energy sector is a complete reality. I'd like to thank the United States for their collaboration with us on the granting of those specific OFAC licenses that have been granted to Trinidad and Tobago, and the work that we're doing with the Venezuelan government. Because those are real projects, and those are projects for Trinidad and Tobago. So don't let the naysayers take you off track and introduce doubt into your minds. Read in between the lines and see how much progress is being made in that area. Understand that it is being bought into by those large developing countries that recognize we are a responsible country with a lot of existing infrastructure and capacity that can contribute significantly to the global energy security that is needed, and work with us to make it a reality. And two of our largest upstream producers are the initial partners in the first two projects that you all have heard about. That is the Dragon gas field and the Coquina Mannequin gas field that we're working on right now. That is real. And all of our eggs are not in that basket as we talk about sustainability. CBAM is something that is going to affect us. I was told that is unfortunately not something that is going to be easily or reversible at all. We will work with the stakeholders in Trinidad and Tobago to see what can be done from the governmental level, partnering with them to ensure that these industries continue. And it is something very much on the government's radar. I heard Anthony Sabga refer to the cruise ship industry, and you all will be glad to know that this government is pursuing that cruise ship industry, and in particular, we intend, as we've hinted time and time again, and last week the Prime Minister in a conversation with me, we are going ahead with it, to become the bunkering hub where we can provide methanol refueling as well as LNG refueling here in Trinidad and Tobago for these massive cruise liners that are moving towards cleaner fuel. In closing, I wish to congratulate the Energy Chamber for pushing the climate agenda in the Caribbean. I'm confident that the deliberations in the conference will bring us closer to our goal of energy sustainability and energy security. I look forward to the collaboration among stakeholders in achieving this objective. And I ask that you all work together in a realistic framework to take us forward, not only Trinidad and Tobago, but the region, because it's important. I thank you for your attention, and I thank you for your time here this morning.